Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for having me in this session. And I think as already asked by the organizer, I will try to share my views on how we can basically manage the technology so that we can support the environment sustainability. So let me share my presentation. I don't have much presentation or not much slide as we don't have much time as well. So I hope it works now. Okay. So as already mentioned earlier, so my session will be on managing technologies to protecting environment sustainability. And we know that during this era, basically, we cannot live without technology, from the very simple one all the way to the most advanced one. So to start, let us now think or see where are we at the moment. So if you are talking about development, right? So basically development has happened around the world. And we can see, for example, in industrialized nations, the development already started like a century earlier than those in the developing nations. So for example, in industrialized nations, the development basically started during the Industrial Revolution, while for developing nations, mostly post-1970s, as most of them became independent only in 1940s and 1950s, around that time. And we can see with that difference of time of development, then of course the level of economy, the level of social, as well as the level of environment will be different from developed or industrialized nations and developing nations. And at the same time, on the one hand, we have all this development process, but on the other hand, in parallel, I should say, there are also attempts to have like shifting or having a more sustainable development rather than development that basically give impact, negative impact. So the Sustainable Development Agenda, we can start from this United Nations Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm in 1972, where we had this Stockholm Declaration that basically like the beginning of the dialogue between industrialized and developing countries to see the link between economic growth, the pollution, as well as the well-being or the social aspect of the people around the world. And then like 20 years after that, we have this United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in Rio de Janeiro. And I think this is a famous Rio summit. There we have this Rio Declaration on the Environment and Development. And at that meeting also, we got this, we adopt 3 conventions that govern the different issues at the global level. So the first one is the UNFCCC, the one governing the climate issue. The second one is the UNCBD, the one governing biodiversity. And then the UNCCD to tackle desertification. And after that also, I think it's like another 20 years after the Rio summit, then we have another summit also in Rio. It's called United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. And there we got, as the outcome of this, we got the Sustainable Development Goals. So then from, we know where we are now and what happened before. So what did we get out of all these things? So the first one, the statistic shows that the use of natural resources has more than tripled from 1970s and still continues to grow. So, And if we are talking about at the beginning, I mentioned about the development, right? So what is it, the impact or the result of all this development? So at this stage, so if we are talking about the economy, then there is inequity between the global north, which mostly developed countries or industrialized nations, and then the global south, mostly developing nations, right? What happened in the economic sector is that 10% of the world's populations owns 76% of the world wealth, while more than 50% of the world's population, who are the poorest, owns only 2% of the global wealth. So we can see here the inequity, right? And then if we are talking about the environment, the poorest, the 50% that I mentioned earlier, they contributed only about to 10% of the global greenhouse gases emission, while the 10% that own 76% of the world wealth basically produce about more than 50% of the greenhouse gases emissions during the period of 1990 to 2015. And with these two conditions, then we can expect that from the social or the well-being, then the data shows that climate disaster-related death in 2000 to 2017 indicated that, you know, like 16 deaths per million for the high-income groups, which is the 10% earlier, compared to about 60 per million for low-income group, or the more than the 50% of the world's population. So as already tasked by the organization, so the organizer asked me about how to manage the technology. So let's see what are the role of technology so far. So I just start with the negative impact on the environment. But basically, if you are talking about technology as well as because technology is one of the, how do you call it, key element for development, right? So the impact, the negative impact, the first one, definitely pollution. We can see air pollution, both local as well as transboundary. We can see water pollution, be it in quality and quantity. So quality is more like the quality being degraded, but then if we are talking about quantity, we find a lot of scarcity of water as well. And then we also have soil pollution. And this is basically because the use of hazardous materials, for example, for mining and other activities. We also lately, I think we heard a lot about this ocean pollution, which basically due to the plastic waste, due to tailing that being undergone in the oceans. We can also see that the ocean pollution also because of the hazardous waste and hazardous materials that come into the ocean through the, for example, through the river. And we can see that basically ocean has been, in a way, becoming the largest dam site, right? And talking about the dam site, we also have issues of waste management, both for waste, solid waste as well as liquid waste. And the one that, you know, like I think becoming a bigger issue now is the greenhouse gases, right? Because all of our activities as human, so anthropogenic activities, basically most of them will produce greenhouse gases. And then the second one is depletion of natural resources. So we have like all these issues related to forest degradation and deforestation. We also have issues with fossil fuels and minerals exploitation and mining. We have soil erosion, biodiversity loss, as well as desertification. But of course, technology also give benefit to the environment. for example, we have without technology, we won't be able to have all this renewable energy, right? We also have technology that increase the efficiency of the process. And then another one that I think it's becoming more and more important is also technologies help us to have this process from cradle to cradle rather than from cradle to grave. So it's basically the resources that we use, how do you call it, to produce something at the end can be reused again, can be the input to the same process. So it's basically the principles of circular economy. We also have automatization of many aspects, including in managing process as well as waste. And in a way, this also, helping us in managing the environment. And of course, cleaning the environment, there are a lot of technology that already developed, for example, to reduce the, let's say, air pollution, to reduce the dust, the particulate in the air, as well as to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases and others, and waste, of course. We also heard about this electrification of transport system, for example. And for those that working in the area of climate change and greenhouse gases, then we know that there are technologies that can be used to capture and to use the greenhouse gases that emitted from other activities. And then the last one, I think this will be closely related to the digitalization as well, is to tracking the commodities as well as carbon unit. If you are talking about carbon market, I mean, like in carbon market, carbon unit become the commodities, right? So this is with this kind of technology, I think usually people refer to blockchain technology, right? You can track different commodities or different unit where it goes from one place to another, from one account to another, and so on. But I think if we are talking about digitalization, there are also benefit and negative impact. So the benefit, as I mentioned earlier, for example, increase in productivity, and also, we used to this kind of word now that we can work from home, we can have all this conversation online, and it also will ensure efficiency, ensures or increase creativity, and also bring people together in a platform, not only like for this conversation, but also, for example, for market. So there are a lot of market platform in this kind of digitalization as well. So, but there are also, of course, negative impacts that we need to really taking care of. The first one, we need electricity, we need power and electricity for sure. And we know that, like, for example, all this, because we need power, we need electricity, we need the data server, then there is issue of heat that will be produced. And because of the heat and also the power that we need, then there will be increase of demand for water, even this is indirectly. So I think this will be my last slide. So how we can maximizing the benefit of technology? First, from my point of view, we need to innovate and have this co-development of technology. So it's basically join to cater the real needs so that more local resources can be used, and then more users can implement that as well or can apply it as well. And then the second one, of course, more towards cradle to cradle, and also minimizing the waste production. The digitalization, as I mentioned earlier, will increase efficiency. And then, of course, the biggest issue of digitalization, as I mentioned earlier, is the power or electricity. So we need to make sure that the electricity or the power come from renewable sources, so that we can minimize the impact to the environment, as well as to health, basically, because if we are talking about the power that being generated from coal, for example, then you have a lot of health issues as well. So I think I'll just stop there, and I wish everyone a good conversation later. Thank you.